Mr. Smith, NERA issued issued a result of their study. I understand DOE received that this summer. Is that correct?
That is correct.
However, it was released from DOE in December. Can you account for that delay, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. First of all, I certainly would not characterize that as a delay. I mean, this is the NERA study here in my hand. So this was a significant and substantial economic study that's looking at quantifying the impact of an unprecedented activity here in the United States in terms of exporting hydrocarbons in the form of liquefied natural gas. So this study was received by the Department. It was requested by the Department as something to be responsive to our need to be judicious about quantifying public interest. So we did need some numbers. Once this was received, there was an intense process to understand the study, to ensure that it was clear and transparent, to ask clarifying questions to make sure that this study, once entered in the public record, would be clear and responsive to the types of things that we need to understand as part of the public interest determination.
And who made that decision when to actually release it?
I made that decision.
Okay. So nothing that happened perhaps in, I don't know, November could have had any impact on that decision at all?
No, the study was released when I was prepared to release it and when we had done the work that we needed to do within the Department of Energy to make sure it was appropriate.
Mr. Ebinger, how do the transportation costs of LNG affect the price in the world market compared to domestic prices?
Thank you, Congressman. The transportation costs are, of course, extremely high. Right now, if we were looking at what could we deliver gas for example, if we were ready to export into the Japanese market, it would probably, the actual transportation cost would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 to $6 per million BTU. And of course, added on added on to the Henry Hub price, say, plus of course the cost of gasification and then regasification, I think most analysts would agree that we would probably be able to deliver gas into Japan today if we could export at somewhere between $9.50 to $10 a million BTU. Significantly lower, of course, than the Japanese price.
Sure. So how would that compare against other forms of energy for Japan? Would that be a favorable price for them?
At that price, it would be a very favorable price for Japan.
Okay.
Because otherwise, of course, Japan imports almost everything.
Right.
And since the Fukushima accident, the closing of the nuclear power plants has added roughly 4 BCF a day to Japanese demand, killing them, because of course they are importing into a very high cost in a high cost market.
Right. Okay. So obviously it's a very marketable concept to sell natural gas to Japan, up to and including all the delivery costs that go with that.
The concern would be, however, the longer we take to get some of our projects into the marketplace, if you believe that and I think some of us at the table have different views on this, but if you believe that the long-run implications of any U.S. LNG going in the market will be to begin to bring further competition, that the existing prices in Japan will begin to fall. Now, they won't fall probably down to $10, but they might fall to 12 or 13. So the competitiveness of the U.S., while still probably reasonable, is not going to be as great the longer we take to get LNG projects into the marketplace.
Right. How does that affect the U.S. exporters compared to competitors in the U.S. exports compared to competitors in Qatar or African countries?
The big loser in this competitive LNG market down the road may be Australia, although most of the big projects they have coming in, they have long-term contracts for. But they are extremely high-cost producer. It's anticipated, Qatar, of course, is the low-cost producer, bar none. Although Australia will be volumetrically larger than Qatar when all the projects come in, it's anticipated that the new fields in East Africa will be extremely competitive into the Far Eastern market, and even some of the West African projects in Nigeria and Angola will probably find a competitive market there. But the big question mark, in my mind anyway, is will the Chinese and the Russians do some very, very large pipeline deals, because that would be extremely competitive in the Far Eastern market against any LNG.
Right. So what I'm really hearing is that we're seeing a tremendous worldwide opportunity with natural gas that will allow the growth of economies around the world where they will have very competitive energy prices, that they can be good producers for export, import, which will be good for consumers. Would that be a correct assumption?
It will not only be good for consumers, Congressman, but for those of us that do believe in climate change, it offers a unique opportunity to at least use a cleaner fossil fuel. It's not an answer clearly for the long run because it's still a CO2 emitting fuel, but we do get some breathing space on the carbon front.
Yeah, it's my understanding that just in the last 3 years, carbon emissions have dropped 15% across the U.S., and that's due directly to the conversion to natural gas. So really this is a win-win-win. We get better environment on the CO2 emissions. We get better prices for manufacturing and production, which means, well, in production, so we get better job environment, higher paying jobs, and then consumers get a better deal on the cost of energy. So I can't imagine what could be better for this nation or this world.
I would agree, and the irony is for those that were opposed to the U.S. signing the Kyoto Protocol, which of course we did not sign, ironically because of gas backing out coal, we have actually met the reduction targets that we would have been obligated to had we signed the Kyoto Protocol.
Imagine that. Thank you, sir.